and I'm a sixth grader at Kesher May of Connecticut. I'll be interviewing my grandma, whose name is Seal, about her life and legacy. This interview is being recorded for the Oral History Archives of the Jewish Historical Society of Fairfield County, as well as our family archives. Over the next 15 minutes or so, I will ask you questions that will help me learn more about you and our family's history, especially our Jewish history. Are you ready?
Yes.
In class, I have been learning about the immigration of Jews to the U.S. and other places. Do you know where your parents, grandparents, or great-grandparents immigrated from?
Yes, my parents immigrated from Europe to Israel. My mother immigrated from Poland, and my father immigrated from Russia.
Do you know anything about Jewish life there?
Yes, they was very happy life. They were Orthodox, so they were very comfortable in their Jewish life. My grandfather from my father's side was a rabbi, the chief Zionist rabbi of Russia. And my mother's father in Poland was a rabbi as well.
Do you know where your parents, grandparents, or great-grandparents immigrated from?
Well, I think some were from Poland, some were from Hungary, and some were from Russia.
Do you know anything about Jewish life there?
Just that it was very difficult, and that's the reason that they left.
In this class, I've been learning about the immigration of Jews to the U.S. and other places. Do you know where your parents, grandparents, or great-grandparents immigrated from?
Absolutely. My mother's mother came to the United States when she was 12 years old with her older sister, and they came from Austin. My mother was born in New York. My father's mother, and for generations before them, were all born in Jerusalem. Father was born in Jerusalem as well.
Do you know anything about Jewish life there at the time?
Well, it was a time of turmoil. My father was born in 1911. So it was, Jerusalem was under British control with Arabs all around. He was born in the same house that his mother, his grandmother, his great-great-grandmother, as well as all of the generations before were born in.
Can you tell me anything about our family's immigration to the United States?
I only know about my immediate family. We came in 1936. We came in 1936 on an ocean liner, and we landed in, our first stop was in Brooklyn, New York.
Do you know anything about your parents' immigration in the U.S. and who came over with them?
Sure. Well, actually, I have these little two documents over here, and in 1953 or 54, myself, who was 4, my sister, who was 1, and my mother and father got on a ship called the Liberty in Paris, France, and I don't know if it took 3 or 4 weeks. I mean, I was 4 years old, so I don't remember. But we ended up on this ship, and this ship brought us into New York Harbor. And that was the first time I got to see that. Yeah. Well, no, Ellis Island was actually closed by that time, believe it or not. They had closed it. We just came through the harbor, a very hot day in August. But I remember seeing the Statue of Liberty for the first time.
Did you like it?
I liked it. And my mother was crying when she saw the Statue of Liberty.
Probably because she knew she was free.
I'm sure most of them came to New York. They probably entered the country in New York. And I think they all settled in New York.
This is a great background. Thank you. Was anyone in the family directly affected by the Holocaust in Europe or by pogroms in Russia, Poland, or elsewhere? What can you tell me about?
Well, in Russia, they left because of pogroms and anti-Semitism, and in Austria also. And my grandfather, who was born in Austria, his parents came to the United States, but they didn't feel the country was religious enough for them. They were very religious, and they went back to Austria, and they perished in the Holocaust.
Was anyone in the family directly affected by the Holocaust in Europe or by programs in Russia, Poland, or elsewhere? What can you tell me about it?
Yes. My mother's family mainly was perished in the Holocaust. She came to Israel with a sister and a brother. However, the rest of the family was perished actually perished in the Holocaust. My father came to Israel with two of his brother, his sister, and his parents. And they also left few of their relatives in Russia, which perished in the Holocaust as well.
Do your parents or anyone in your family experience were they affected by the Holocaust or pogroms, and how so?
Well, I was starting to tell you, yes, my parents were very fortunate. They both survived the Holocaust. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here, okay? And they survived by just the grace of God, really. My mother ended up in a labor camp, as I said, in Russia, and she helped to build the railroads in Siberia. But I mentioned to you that she knew how to play the piano. So one of the soldiers asked if she could come out and teach his son, how to play the piano, and that saved her life. She was able to teach him. My father was not so lucky, but he did survive the war. And actually, they both met in Poland after the war, when the war was over.
There were pogroms in Russia before they went to Poland. I know they experienced that, and that was around, I guess, 1911. And my grandfather was supposed to go into the Russian army, but he even was on the train going for his first training session, and his father brought a set of clothes with him and went to one of the stations and took him off the train and hid him so that he wouldn't have to serve in the Russian army.
What was life like?
Well, we were immigrants. And this was the Depression, so there weren't a lot of luxuries. And my parents didn't have a car. They didn't have a telephone. It wasn't a lot of fun. But I grew up on a street with a lot of people my own age, and we had a lot of fun playing.
My father's mother lived here until she was 96 years old. And at 96, she decided to move back to Jerusalem, to the house she was born in, because they still owned it. At 96 years old, she re-wallpapered the entire house herself and bought furniture and made slipcovers for all of the furniture and lived there until she was 99, at which point one of my father's sisters made her move back here because she was all by herself.
We moved out to the suburbs in Ossining when I was 9. And then I know we had a temple there that we all enjoyed and went, and I was bas mitzvah there, but the bas mitzvah was not like the bas mitzvahs now. It was just Friday night, it was a service, and then you said your Haftorah and it was over.
Did you go to synagogue?
And what was that like?
Well, when you went to this Hebrew school, they had synagogue. So you went to the Hebrew school Sunday morning, and then Monday through Thursday from I think 2 to 4 o'clock. So on Saturday, you went again to this Hebrew school, had a part of it that was like a synagogue. And we went there every Saturday, and it was just young people at the, there weren't adults at it. It was just kids who went to the school.
Now I'd like you to take out the item that you brought to talk about today.
Oh, well, I'll show you this same picture. Okay, so that's my wedding. It was in 1984, and I married Alan Lewis. Can you see it? Well, maybe that's too close.
Yeah, now I see it.
Can you see it? Okay.
Yeah.
Doesn't look under the clipper. I don't know. Anyway, does that work?
When was it?
It was 1984. March 1984.
Now I would like you to take out the item that you brought to talk about today.
Well, I brought 2 items. The first was this picture of my grandfather, my father's father. And this is him over here in a Russian Kazakh's hat. And this is a Pesach Seder, Passover Seder, probably around 1907 or thereabouts. And if you can see, there's Hebrew writing on the banner that hangs down from the table. And it says Pesach Seder in Hebrew. And then the other thing that I have is, this is my parents' wedding ketubah. I don't know if you can really see it. And this is from 1947. So that makes this 77 years old. And Jenna, my mother, who was in this picture, this is their wedding album, if you can see it. That's who you're named after. Her name was Julia, and your name is Jenna.
This first one is a sifter that belonged to my grandmother, which means it was your great-great-grandmother. And we used it for baking all the time. And then she gave it to my mother, and my mother gave it to me. And when you get your own house, I think I'll give it to you. And here's a picture of your mother using the sifter and cooking with my mother, which is your great-grandmother.
There it is, I see it. It's right there. Do you know where it came from or how old it is?
Well, let's see. It's gotta be 70 years old, maybe?
Wow, that's really old.
Just figuring.
So this is one of my favorite wall hangings that we own, and it says Lador Vador in Hebrew letters, which means from generation to generation. And to me, it symbolizes the fact that we want to know all about the past and that we have to try to uphold the Jewish traditions and do things that will help keep us in mind that we're Jews and we're proud to be Jews. And Grandpa Jeff gave this to me in 1983 because I had an adult bat mitzvah.
This picture is a picture of, it was really a lot of men and women, my mother and father here, because my mother worked in the nursery after the war. My father was a guard. And all these little children, these were children that were orphans after the war because their parents had perished during the Holocaust. And these children actually went on the ship that went to Israel when Israel was first founded. And this is where my mother and father found each other and fell in love. That's pretty cool.
This is my paternal grandmother. Her name was Fanny Ackerman. And she was a very, very observant woman. She didn't even walk on the grass on Saturday because she was afraid of breaking a blade.
Why is it special to you and our family?
What is special?
The picture.
Oh, I think it shows a very elegant, religious woman dressed very conservatively.
Maddie, there's something very important I wanted to share with you.
There is?
Yes. This is a siddur that my father, your great-grandfather, was given on his bar mitzvah. And since then, when he got married, he used the siddur. My mother, your great-grandmother, she carried this siddur with her when she walked down the aisle. And I used it, and your Uncle Charles used it, and your Uncle Hai used it, and your mom used it when she walked down the aisle, as well as all our first cousins. We all used it. And one day, if you decide to get married, you could carry it down the aisle too.
It's like from generation to generation?
Yes,
kind of?
from generation to generation to generation.
Now, I would like to ask you your favorite Jewish holiday. Describe how you and your family would celebrate it when you were a child.
Well, I always loved Passover, which is kind of funny because, there's a lot of food we couldn't eat on Passover, but I loved the Seders. And my father and my uncle, the two of them, would do the entire Haggadah, the whole thing. They wouldn't skip anything. So, and I remember being very excited to say the 4 questions. And I would stand up, and my mother got me a very pretty dress to wear. And I was very proud that I could say the 4 questions in Hebrew.
Wow.
And we would drive to my grandmother's, and there'd be a full moon.
Wow.
And at night, what I didn't know is that every year on Passover, there's a full moon, because that's how the calendar is written, so that it would always be a full moon. It was always beautiful.
Yeah. That would be next Passover. I'm gonna look at the sky and
Yeah, look at the sky and you'll see it's a full moon. It's really beautiful.
And Shabbos, and we celebrated, the Shabbos candles and so forth and had a wonderful Friday night dinner every week. So that was, Mom always cooked chicken, which was marvelous. She had our roasted chicken every week, and the family got together and we had Friday night dinner. And a lot of times we had guests, so that was nice.
How did you meet Grandpa?
How did I meet him? We were both at a wedding for one of our friends. The bride was a sorority member of the sorority I was in at Queens College, and the groom was friends with Grandpa, and they were in a fraternity at Queens College, and Grandpa was invited to the wedding by his friend who was the groom, and I was invited to the wedding by my sorority sister who was the bride, and we met at that wedding. And we started dating shortly after they got married.
What did you do to make a living in your adult life?
I had a grooming shop, dog grooming, and I really loved it. And I did it for, I don't know, about 18, 20 years. And I owned my own shop, and I didn't start out, but I did eventually own my own shop, and it was wonderful. And then I retired when I got married.
So when you were a young adult, what did you do for a living?
I became a teacher. I always wanted to teach. I always loved children. And I became a teacher, and it was a great profession for me. Well, I first worked for the Israeli government for a few years, and then I opened my own business in the shipping industry and created a nice sized company in Israel for logistics, air freight, ocean freight. And I enjoyed it till I sold the company.
Did anyone in your family serve in the military? If yes, tell me more.
Okay, I served in the military. I went like every Israeli adult to the army. I was 18. It was in 1963, and I served till 1966. Then there was the 6-Day War in 1967, and I served in the war. It was pretty short and very costly. And then in 1973, I went back to Israel from the United States, and I fought in the Yom Kippur War in Israel, which was a long and very successful war at the end.
Did anyone in your family serve in the military? If yes, tell me more.
My husband did. He served in the British Army because he was from Germany. He went to what was then Palestine, and he served in Palestine was a British mandate, and he served in the British Army during the Second World War.
Now we are going to wrap up with one more question.
It's over?
This is the 19th question.
What is the question?
What advice do you have for future generations?
I'd like to see them keeping the traditions and starting at a very young age. And the celebration of the holidays are wonderful.
Now we're going to wrap up with one more question. What advice do you have for future generations like me?
Wow. Well, I think to be curious, to have an open mind about things, to want to learn a lot, to study hard, and also to have fun. I think fun is very important. So I don't know, and to be in, and also to be a good person and kind.
What advice do you have for future generations like me?
Like you? Well, to me, I think it's very important for the youth of today who are Jewish to be proud of their Jewish identity, because Jews have been attacked from generation to generation. And I think tradition is very important, like Shabbat, lighting candles on Shabbat, having a nice Shabbat dinner with challah and wine, so that you remember, and to, at least if nothing else, to observe all the Jewish holidays with pride and enjoy them, and keep passing these traditions on from generation to generation. I think it's important for Jewish children and Jewish adults to have a strong Jewish identity.
Thank you for answering these questions with me, and I love spending time with you doing this.